Giant Voice, the official podcast of the United States Navy's largest overseas installation, Commander Fleet Activities, Yokosuka. All the information you need to succeed as a forward deployed sailor in Japan. Each week, we tackle one topic and speak to experts who can answer some of your most frequently asked questions. This is the Giant Voice Podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Giant Voice Podcast. This is part 2 of our Master Chief's Corner episode. If you haven't listened to part 1, you can go check that out. But we had so much that we needed to kind of split it up into 2 episodes. So without further ado, here is the second part of our Master Chief's Corner. So, me and Command Master Chief Beachy are still here, but we have swapped out 2 other Command Master Chiefs. So, we have Destroyer Squadron 15, Command Master Chief Wallace, and we have Commander 7th Fleet, Command Master Chief Field. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
How's everything doing?
Everything's going good and busy as always.
Always.
As we all know out here in FDNF. But I think we're overall in a good posture, good stance, and the fleet's doing well, as can be expected with the amount of operations we have going on.
Yep, that high op tempo is the name of the game out here. We were just talking right before we started rolling here about maybe some people coming out here who maybe aren't used to the op tempo. They're used to something a little bit different back stateside. Maybe you guys can talk a little bit about how it's different out here.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in the last 24 months, we've home port shifted 6 DDGs that came in, and then we had a few depart. So if you served out here prior to 2021, right, the landscape looks different.
Yep.
Because we have all these DDGs that came from CONUS. And along with that is we have the sailors that came from CONUS. Some may have operated out here in the past, some cross decks, right? Some stayed, but for the most part, there's a large portion that had never served out here before or for an extended period of time. So how they're used to operating off the coast of San Diego is a little different than how we operate out here in 7th Fleet. So the underway days may be the same, they're just accumulated differently.
Right.
And that takes a little bit, getting used to, because when you go pierside in San Diego, you don't have SRF all over your ship right away,
right,
as you do here, getting stuff taken care of and maintained. So there's a little bit of that and some growing pains to get used to, but for the most part, these sailors are awesome and they're super resilient, and they've answered all the bells when called upon to get out there and get it.
Awesome. I mean, that's good to hear. I personally, I always liked the kind of op tempo out here better, right? Rather than one big long thing and then a lot of time not at sea, going into these a little bit more on and off. And so you're out for less, you're in for a while, but you're underway the same amount of days. They're just kind of happening in a different way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I kind of like it like that. I don't know. At least for me, I liked it.
Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, but I'll tell you, it's hard to plan. Right? If you want to take a family vacation or something like that, it's super, super hard to plan. And we're limited on the amount of ships that we have out here. We don't have a robust waterfront like San Diego, where we have Pac Northwest and then maybe even Hawaii that we can tap into relatively pretty easy. So we're limited out here. So if one of our ships out here breaks and they're on mission, right, we have to look within our own lifelines to go out there and take care of that mission, because we still have to fight the fight, right? Yep. So we looked at and we take that out of height, if you will. So, that gets a little frustrating because you're trying to make plans with your family, and then that gets upset, literally overnight sometimes. And we understand that, and it's not lost on us, but at the end of the day, we still got to get it done, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's good to put that out there, right? Because if you're the E3 on board the ship and you have something planned and you're losing it because you guys are going back underway because someone else is broke, it's good to understand that there is a much larger picture there that needs to be addressed, right? And yes, it's not lost on you guys that it's not fun, but I don't think you guys would do it if you didn't have to, right?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And in the beauty is that my staff, and I know Master Chief Field staff, we served on these ships out here.
Right.
I was CMC on Shiloh previously, so I understand.
I was on Shiloh many years ago.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah,
Shiloh alum.
Karish Morris was captain, so 2013, I want to say.
Okay, yeah. Way predated me there. but no, I mean, still so awesome. I mean, crew des Navy, out here in 7th Fleet getting it done. So we understand what that operational tempo is and what it's like to, have those last minute, port call cancellations and so on and so forth. So it's super frustrating. I'm not going to lie. I understand it and I get it, but we have to get it done because there's just no other options but what we have to our right and left of us on the pier.
Yep.
I don't really expect the junior sailor to really comprehend that because I didn't really comprehend that until I was CMC of my first destroyer out here in the harbor. Right. I didn't realize the amount of requirements and things that we are required to do by treaty with other countries that just don't get fulfilled because we don't have enough resources.
Yep.
And that sometimes, that port visit that we're all looking forward to, gets canceled because there's something else more pressing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the enemy gets a vote.
Definitely.
Higher headquarters gets a vote. A lot of folks get the vote. It's just that we're just the one delivering the message sometimes, and that's okay, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, and we'll do it. But sometimes it's hard to get that message out to the deck plate that as the ISTIC, like we're advocating for you, and sometimes we win, sometimes we don't, but we're 100% advocating for you because we understand that pressure.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it was one of the things was when prior to here, I was CTF 76 down in Sasebo, so very familiar with the home port ships. We had 3 of them down there, but sitting in that table at that level, task force level, we were always asking why were we getting these last minute taskers from 7th Fleet. Now sitting at the 7th Fleet table, like CMC said, those taskers come from way above us, and they happen to come at the last minute because the enemy gets a vote in what we do out here.
Yep.
And we're required to have a certain presence always available, underway. And we've even tapped into some of the amphibs to do some of the missions that your normal crew does would be doing because we don't have the number of fleet out here that you would see back in San Diego.
Right.
And it wouldn't go without saying that, along with the new sailors coming out here, but I think one of the most important roles that a sailor has is their spouse. And the spouses play a critical key part in that relationship, allowing that sailor to complete the mission, to get that call, 24-hour tether, head out to sea. And definitely I tip my hats off to the families that come out here with those sailors as well, because they endure about as much as what the active duty service member does as well,
Yep.
And there's unique challenges to Japan, as we all know. And so that's another part of the home port shift is people understanding that, hey, if something happens at home, you're not going to be able to get home in 8 hours.
Yep.
It takes 20 hours, 24 hours, depending where you're traveling to in the country, East Coast, West Coast. And then the local challenges here, with the cost of living is increasing, or it's a cost of goods here on base are increasing. It's just unique things here in Japan. However, I will tell you, everybody cries when they come out here, and everybody cries when they leave.
Oh yeah,
true.
So true. My wife's ship home ported here, as you well know, right? Every single sailor on that ship did not want to leave San Diego. And for months after they arrived here, it was like, oh, we want to go back. And then slowly but surely, those voices decreased, and then they're like, oh, my God, we love Japan.
Oh, yeah.
This place is amazing. And now, just like you said, every checkout she has with her sailor that's heading back to San Diego, because they made that decision way back when they got here, they're like, CMC, we don't want to leave now. Well, next set of orders, come back.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, so on the spouse piece, having been in Europe prior to here, and then CONUS mainly for my rest of my career, the spouse network out here is just amazing.
Yeah,
sure
it is.
It is.
And my wife gets dialed in with all that stuff, but they have something. And I know my wife's going to pat me on the back for saying this. So the YES program, right? The Yokosuka Enhanced Sponsorship Program. It's super, super critical with bringing some of those spouses over and taking care of that stuff. And then some of the other organizations that the spouses are directly involved in, right, is super, super helpful for getting families settled, because ship comes over here, they get a little bit of time to get settled, and then we put them to work.
Right.
And there's still boxes that need to be unpacked,
break time.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
There's no pause.
I was going to say there are groups out here where the dependents and the spouses. So not just yes, but there are definitely others, out here that can absolutely, the support that our dependents receive out here, far greater than any place I've ever seen in the States. Yeah. Any place I've ever seen.
Yep, it's a good network, and yeah, it's pretty impossible to not fall in love with being out here. There's very few people that I meet who come out here for a tour of duty and afterwards don't at least go, wow, that was great. Yeah, I don't want to leave is the more typical response, And
I was that sailor as a new command master chief, and coming out to Japan, Okinawa of all places, and everybody knows the stigma of Okinawa. And I'll tell you what, 3 years later when I was departing Okinawa to take my second tour in Japan, I didn't want to leave Okinawa.
Okinawans are lovely people.
Yeah, they are. And then from there I went to Atsugi to Yokuni, Iwakuni to Sasebo, and now here at Yokosuka. So.
Look at you've been all over now. You go to hit Yokota and Misawa on your way out, and you got the whole thing covered.
I'm not a fan of snow, so I think I put Misawa on pause for a little bit. Yeah.
Yokota, I was at the AFN at Yokota for a few years. Yokota's a nice duty station. The issue is the base is very, very spread out, and they really don't have a public transit network on the base. So you kind of got to drive all over this very big spread out base. Yeah. But far west Tokyo is absolutely gorgeous, man. I mean, the mountains and Fuji's right there. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. Misawa, that's a different story, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well,
it is.
Yeah, Dean from our last episode, I should say Master Chief Howell, he was previous CMC of Misawa.
Oh, really?
Of course, but yeah, he's like me. We're big into, I love the winter. I love the white stuff that falls from the sky.
Yep,
and,
me too.
I love to go skiing. So, he was having a blast up there doing that.
Yeah, I bet. Also with the snowplow.
Oh, yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, there's so many beautiful areas of Japan. I have yet to explore north of Tokyo, but kind of talking to the sailor piece of this, every sailor that we have here in Japan plays a critical role with our community outside the fence line.
Right.
We just recently were able to kind of pressure release the Liberty policy. They've been working that. I was part of that towards the end, but that started off in March. And one of the biggest things that us as command SELs had out here was, we bring a sailor out here, we put them to work, and we work them, and then we don't treat them like adults when they're outside the fence line.
Right.
And I think that was a huge win. But also remember, too, that everybody is a representative of the United States, so your actions are important outside the fence line. They're outside the blue line. But at the same time, take advantage of it. Go see the areas that we've all been to, right? Go visit. Don't stay in your barracks rooms. The transportation system out here is so easily manageable and easy to get anywhere you want to go to, and show the people of Japan that we care about this country. We care about them, because ultimately we're here for a couple reasons, and one of them is for them. And so anytime sailors out there decide they go outside the blue line and they think that they can act like they would back in New York or back in LA or back in whatever hometown.
No.
It's way different. The culture's different. Customs are different. Courtesies are completely different.
Yep.
So I think that's a very important piece that sailors understand. Whatever they do, whether it be on the ship or out in town, directly relates to the mission that we have here as U.S. Forces Japan.
Yeah, so we touched on that a little bit in the last part of this episode too. And like one of the things we were talking about is, you can walk into an izakaya, right? And Japanese people are drunk, partying up, having a blast, being crazy. The second they walk out that door, their game face is on, because I'm back in polite society. And even though I'm inebriated, I still got to abide by the social construct. And so it's like there's a time and a place here for things. And if you're a junior sailor, and you stick to those times and places, you're not going to run into any problems.
Yeah, you're right.
And you're going to have a blast along the way.
Most definitely. I think one of my eye openers was when I first got to Okinawa in 2013 was I made friends with the locals.
Right. Yes, was a big eye opener for me.
To me, that was because here I am. I was stationed in San Diego for 20 years. I'd never been to Japan. I was a Westpac sailor, but we never pulled into Japan. And just to learn from them,
Yep.
you know, what you say, what you don't say, how you act, how you can't act, you know, when do you talk on the phone, when you don't talk on the phone. And I think that helped me out a lot to transition when I started coming to mainland after that tour. So it was important.
There's also a social element there, right? Like we're animals who respond to social pressure, right? So if you make Japanese friends and you're hanging with your Japanese friends, the way that they behave and react to
Yep.
things is going to just automatically rub off on you. You're just going to start behaving in the same way and reacting in the same way. And, you know, there's that joke about like, oh, well, people won't sit next to Gaikokujin to foreigners on the train, right? But guess what? I don't have that problem because here's the thing. If someone walks past me, all you have to do is, if you just tighten up your body space just a little bit, people will sit right down next to you because it's a sign of saying like, I'm making a little bit of room for you.
Correct. Yep.
But if you're there like this, with your
if
phone.
You're
by yourself, that's fine. But when someone walks by, you jerk yourself up. Those little things, I think, are what you're talking about, right?
Very, very true. Very true. And there's so many of them, you know. And I find, you know, as probably all do in this room, there's times that I've had to, you know, correct people out in town because it's just, you know, it's not appropriate. Or I say it's not acceptable. It may be appropriate in your eyes, but it's not acceptable, right? And that's the big piece. But I think overall, we're doing a great job, and we're maintaining those relationships because at the end of the day, when the flag goes up, we're going to need our Japanese allies to help us out. Because as CMC said earlier, we don't have the numbered fleet that San Diego does, and that's what we rely on is our allies here in Japan.
Yeah, and they are the Kaijo Jietai especially is awesome. I was on one of their ships once, and man, they run a tight ship.
Oh, their ships are absolutely
Holy
beautiful.
Lord, amazing,
beautiful.
Yep.
So, and I'm glad you brought that point up because I've received, you know, the question, you know, why are we in Japan? You know, why do we have a presence here? You know, and maybe some of you out there have that same question. It's because this part of the world needs our presence, right? I mean, we talked last episode about, you know, you get underway, right? You get outside the bay, and you're immediately in the thick of it. Right?
Yeah, you're in what's on television right
now. Exactly. And having the installation here, you know, with our allies, I mean, Japan is one of our staunchest allies that we enjoy. You know, their assistance and their presence and being in their country, and you know, being that good ambassador like we talked about last episode and some this episode outside the gates. But one of the things that I really enjoy, and I'm glad that COVID, you know, regulations have decreased and we're allowed to get back into it, is, you know, doing things with our counterparts. You know, the JMSDF, the Kaijo Jietai. You know, so, you know, allowing that interaction, like my counterpart, Yoshi, you know, he's Yokosuka District CMC for the JMSDF, and allowing our chiefs messes to come together and know each other does nothing but strengthen that, our alliance.
But you guys were able to do that for Chief season this year, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit at least, maybe.
Yeah, so we had for our staff, for Sun Fleet staff, we actually had the CMCs, the fleet CMCs and CMCs that were kind of our counterparts. They joined us for the final night.
Okay.
But there was still some COVID hesitation.
Yeah, there was still some
restrictions. And that's what we're really trying to get past this so we can go back to a normal life. I had the opportunity to sit down with the Ministry of Defense Senior Enlisted Advisor, the Chairman of Chief Joints of Staff.
Oh wow!
And that was one of the topics was the COVID posture and how how can we help them understand that pretty much COVID is COVID and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be like the swine flu, the bird flu, every other flu that we had, right? And get us back into a posture where we're able to freely congregate together without any type of restrictions, regardless if it's minimal or mass, whatever. Just freely be able to congregate. You know,
I think a change is coming. We were talking about before too of the Japanese government has announced that they're going to downgrade COVID to be in line with right now it's in the category with like tuberculosis and stuff, and they're going to downgrade it to be in a lower one, and hopefully once that actually happens, your things will start to relax a little bit even more. So
So but CMC was right. Just that partnership. I mean, we operate underway at sea with them every day.
Yep.
They're right next to us. They are right next to us, and they help us with our adversaries. They help us with the people that we're here to kind of make sure they don't get too close to our backyard.
Yep.
And every day that we operate with them, it's more and more trust and confidence that we build with the local allies here, and not just here, but the Australians, the New Zealanders. We had the HMS, the French, the British flat top that was out here.
Oh yeah, the Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth. I mean, they were operating out here with the ARG down from Sasebo. So, I mean, all these partners that we have is definitely something that's critical to what we do here in FDNF.
I saw in the news that there's maybe some potential down the line for some more engagement with the Philippines, and that's really great too.
It is, because that's going to be a key territory for us when we really need some help. And they just turned over presidency too as well, so that's kind of you see the leadership style starting to change, and I think it's definitely kind of playing in our favor more. And that goes, then talking to our audience here, we talked about exploring Japan, but the opportunity to just explore the countries out here.
Yeah.
And it's
so
not
close.
It's not that expensive to fly anymore. It's getting cheaper now, but it's an opportunity that I'll tell you what, I took advantage of it before COVID, and I mean I took advantage of it a lot. I think there's only a couple countries I haven't been to out here yet. And I'm anxiously awaiting to get back into it again once my schedule starts to slow down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even some of the get off the base and the outdoor activities. I mean, there's some of the best diving on the planet. Here in Japan, and that's something that I had always wanted to do. So I took my son last summer, and we went and through a dive company out of Tokyo, went and got dive certified down on the Izu Peninsula.
Awesome.
Man, it was just phenomenal, and it was a great opportunity to to spend time with my son, because losing some of that time being underway so much and gone so much, but doing something that we both had an interest in,
and can connect with,
and exploring the country at the same time. I mean, how many people can say, "Hey, I learned how to scuba dive in Japan"?
Yeah.
The Izu Peninsula is fantastically beautiful.
Yeah.
It is unearthly, like Lord of the Rings level beautiful down there. We actually, so the office and the command goes every year to the Shimoda Black Ship Festival. Mm-hmm. And for many years, we used to also send a destroyer typically down there. They haven't done it for many years because of coronavirus right now. But that festival is amazing because it's all centered around Matthew Perry's landing in Japan, and you got American flags up everywhere. It's unbelievable. So that's something when it comes around, even if you're not involved in it with the Navy, to get down to, it's an excuse to go down to Izu.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy it. You know?
Yeah, we've been trying to, one of the things talking to my boss is exploring options outside of just Sasebo and Yokosuka for port calls. Other than the MCMs, the mine hunters down in Sasebo, they get a pretty diverse opportunity to visit other areas of Japan. But that festival, for example, I think you're going to see us engage with that here again pretty soon. I think you're going to see a lot of other ports opening up to Japan ships.
Cool.
To, I should say, FDNF ships, but also to those ships that are coming from the other side of the IDL, Third Fleet ships as well. One of the things I tend to track is the ratio of port calls for the FDNF ships versus my visiting ships, because the admiral's very 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 cautious and is very aware that he wants to make sure that it's even across the board, and especially with as much as we operate out here. So expect for the sailors that are out there listening to us, expect to see some more opportunities to do some port calls outside of Sasebo and Yokosuka, because I think it's going to come here pretty soon.
That would be really cool, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that's outstanding.
Yeah, we're already doing some of it, some places up in northern Japan that we haven't been to before, and stuff. So ships are getting to do some really really cool things they haven't done before.
I was going to say, Peralta pulled in for the ice festival,
they did.
right?
Did they really?
Yeah, they did.
That's great, man. Because we also hadn't had a ship for the ice festival in many years because of the virus. So. The ice festival is a blast.
Yeah, sure
man.
is.
It is so much fun. Great food up there too in Hokkaido, man. This time of year, awesome stuff.
Dance around there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good conversation.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I just like to mention to the population, the crowd that's listening is, understand that things don't go unnoticed at our level. For those of us in the room, we've been in for average 30 years plus, and having operated out here for so long, just for the population to understand that we know what you do. There isn't a day that I'm not fighting for the fleet out here in Japan, and not just within Japan, but across the Navy. Because as we all know, unless you have operated out here, you don't know FD&F Japan at all. Yeah. And that includes from, promotion boards to Sailor of the Year boards to policies, instructions, whatever it is. Policies that work in the U.S., 9 times out of 10 don't work out here for us very well. And we're seeing that right now with the current healthcare issue for our civilian counterparts, and just understand that we know, and I take that back to DC every time I go back. I take that back. So thank you for what you guys do out there, what you all do out there, and I know that I'm in your backyard fighting for you. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's a super, super good point. I mean, we know how hard you guys work, and please trust me when I say it does not go unnoticed. Commodore Maynor and I, we're walking and driving to piers multiple times, throughout the week, and we are just blown away by how great, these ships are looking. I mean, the amount of hard work that goes into topside preservation, right? Because we have to maintain those ships, and as much as you operate, trust me, I know how much you operate.
Oh yeah.
And to be able to have your ships looking that good, because it's so vitally important, because we have to stay mission ready to go out there and fight the fight when called upon, right? Because we just discussed earlier, right? We don't have a whole lot of options to get after, and it's not just, slapping paint on something. It's maintaining our gear so we can have it operationally ready, right, when it's time to, be operationally ready. So, I mean, it just blows me away that, that they're able to get out there and operate underway and then come back in for a limited amount of time and still find time to relax, see their families, and still maintain their gear the way they do, man. Yep. It just impresses us, day in, day out. And I know Dan and I talk about it all the time. And I know Commodore and your boss talk about it all the time, and there's always room for improvement. But I mean, we're just so super blown away and so super, proud and impressed at these sailors out there and the way they, get after these ships. Not just the destroyers either, right? I mean, I'm biased, right? I'm biased towards the destroyers, but I mean, even the cruisers and Blue Ridge and even Reagan, man, come back after that long, deployment. And they're getting after it. And they're getting after it, right? So, I mean, I really appreciate all the hard work on all those sailors out there, man. I really do.
And that about wraps it up for part 2. We want to thank all the Command Master Chiefs who took time to come out and be with us on the podcast. I think we had some really good conversations, and that's about it. As always, if you have ideas for episodes or interviews you want to hear, please let us know at yokosukareport@gmail.com. And until then, thanks for listening. We hope you tune in next time. The Giant Voice Podcast is a production of Commander Fleet Activities Yokosuka Public Affairs Office. The views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the policy of the Department of the Navy or Department of Defense. Thanks for listening.